In this video, I'm going to do a quick example with some follow-up questions on two-way relative frequencies. So the number of SUVs and blue vehicles parked in a public lot are shown in the Venn diagram. Use this to create a two-way table. So we see the Venn diagram here with SUVs and blue vehicles, and then our two-way table that we're going to fill in here to the right of that. Now, what I notice here within this Venn diagram, the area of overlap, or the 20 cars or vehicles here, those are both SUVs and blue vehicles. So these are SUVs, and actually let me just write SUV, and they are blue. So the SUV and blue spot, we have 20 blue SUVs. All right, now something else that I notice, we have 25 that do not fall into the category of SUV or blue vehicle. So this 25 is not SUVs and not blue. So the row not blue and the column not SUV would be 25 vehicles. All right, now let's look at the 45. So 45, these vehicles, they are SUVs, but they are not blue. So these are not blue SUVs. So 45 SUVs that are not blue. And then that leaves us with 60 blue vehicles. Well, I already used orange, too green. 60 blue vehicles, and these are not SUVs. So not SUV, blue vehicles, 60 of them. Now we can find some totals. So the total number of blue vehicles, 20 SUVs that are blue plus 60 not SUVs that are blue, that is 80 vehicles in total. And then 45 not blue SUVs and 25 not blue not SUVs. 40 plus 20 is 60, and then 5 plus 5 is 10, so that is 70. And then I could look at the SUVs. So we had 20 blue SUVs and 45 not blue SUVs. So that is 65 SUVs in total. And then if we're looking at the not SUVs, I have 60 blue not SUVs and 25 not blue not SUVs. So let's see, 60 plus 25 is 85 overall. Now, if I add up the totals, 80 and 70, blue versus not blue vehicles, and if I add up the SUVs and not SUVs, they should all add up to the same amount, which would be 150. So this is what we call a two-way table. I'll write that here. This is a two-way table. And from this, we can create what is called a relative frequency table. So we're going to do that down below. So a relative frequency table takes each of these numbers and it divides it by the total. So this is going to look very similar. Just a little bit bigger. So we know that there were 20 blue SUVs in total. So 20 blue SUVs out of the 150 total vehicles. If you divide 20 by 150, that is a relative frequency of 0.133 repeating. So that's the relative frequency of blue SUVs. All right, let's do the relative frequency of, we'll do the not SUVs that are blue. So 60 of those in total, 60 blue not SUVs out of the 150 total. So 60 over 150, it's really the same as 6 divided by 15 is 0.4 as our relative frequency. All right, let's look at the not blue SUVs. So there were 45 SUVs that were not blue out of the 150 total vehicles. So 45 divided by 150 is 0.3. And then if we look at the 25 not blue, not SUVs, 25 out of 150 is 0.16 repeating, so we'll round it to 167. All right, now let's look at these totals. And these totals oftentimes are called the marginal frequencies, and we're going to write that in a second. But the total number of blue vehicles, there were 80 out of the 150 in total. And if you divide 80 by 150, or if you simply add up the 0.133 and the 0.4, you'll get the same amount, 0.533 repeating. All right, let's look at the not blue total. So there were 70 not blue vehicles in total out of the 150. And 70 divided by 150, if I add up 0.3 and 0.16 repeating, we get approximately 0.467. All right, now let's look at the marginal frequencies for the SUVs. So let's see, there were 65 SUVs in total out of the 150 vehicles. And if you add up the two relative frequencies altogether, that is 0.433. And then our not SUVs, we had 85 of those in total. Let's see, let's write that a little better. 85 out of the 150 total vehicles. And if you add up the relative frequencies of the blue not SUVs and the not blue not SUVs, that will produce the marginal frequency here of 0.567. And then when you add these up together, the total is 1. 0.533 and 0.467 added together, or if I add up the SUVs and not SUVs, we have 150 out of 150. So again, these purple here are what we call the marginal frequencies. All right, we're going to answer 2 quick questions. So number 1, what is the probability a vehicle is blue and not an SUV? Okay, so I want to write this out in a nice notation sort of manner. So the probability that a vehicle is blue and our and symbol, meaning we're looking at the combination of blue and not an SUV. So I'm gonna write not SUV. So we know, let's see, how many vehicles are blue and not an SUV? We have 60 blue not SUVs, right? So the probability that a vehicle is blue and not an SUV, well, that is really just the relative frequency. We already kind of calculated this, right? 60 out of the 150 total vehicles, or 0.4. All right, number 2. What is the probability that an SUV is blue? So this is kind of a different type of question because it is not just asking what is the probability that a vehicle is an SUV that is blue. It is asking us out of the SUVs, what is the probability that an SUV is blue? So really, this is a conditional probability because I'm looking out of the SUVs specifically. Conditional probability. So this is really the probability that a vehicle is blue given that it is an SUV. And so to determine this, our conditional probability formula says that this is really the probability that a vehicle is blue and an SUV divided by the probability that a vehicle is an SUV, because we're just looking specifically at the SUVs. Now this formula honestly kind of overcomplicates it. So I'm gonna, what? I wanted to select all that and make it just a little bit smaller. Because that's good to know. But really, I'm just gonna calculate how many blue SUVs we have. Let's see, we have 20 blue SUVs out of our total number of SUVs, which is 65. So 20 blue SUVs over 65 total SUVs. And if we divide that, we get approximately 0. And I'm going to write our approximate symbol. 0.31 if you round to the nearest hundredth. And that is the probability that an SUV specifically is blue. Please let me know what questions you have on this two-way table lesson, and I look forward to seeing you soon.